Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cinema A to B. Today, Ben and I are finally getting back to some TV, and we are doing 2024's Prime show Fallout. I'm making sure I said all of that correctly. You know, it was one of those things. I was like, there's so much.
Season one.
Because it's been a little bit since I finished it. So, Ben, thoughts, feelings, emotions.
I love it. I think it's a brilliant piece of escapist fare and breaks all of the rules that we feel like are established with how crummy a video game adaptation is supposed to be. It has everything working against it. It shouldn't be this good. Is it like the greatest thing ever? No, but it's so well done.
It's so tongue in cheek, and it's so knows what it is. You know, I say this all the time, but knows what it is, not trying to be anymore. But it works so well when things know what they're doing. It doesn't try to be above and beyond. It's not pushing for that super Oscar winning stuff. It's like, hey, here's a little shock and awe. Here's good dialogue. Here's some great effects. Here's a little tongue in cheek, and let's just roll with it. And here's an engaging story.
Yeah, I should say that I'm not, I'm familiar with the games, but I've not played any of the games. I know the premise. I know the way the games work. I know where they started with Fallout 1 and where they are now with kind of the evolution. But so I'm coming to it from that standpoint of like, there's a lot of inside baseball here that I'm probably missing as far as little nods of fan service. But I didn't feel like I was missing out. Again,
because they did it, as I always say, they did it right, where the little nuggets that, if you know, and you can get and really enjoy it, but don't detract from the rest of the story. So I played the first and the second, the two, Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, and a little bit of tactics, but haven't played any others. I know the show is supposed to happen in the same universe. Like it's supposed to go along kind of with the games. It's not like a whole separate story. However, it's not attacked. They're not trying to retell any of the games. So it doesn't help. Right. I mean, there's no like that much into the story where you kind of knew what was happening, which is kind of nice. So
yeah, the world's large enough that they weren't boxed into having to do that to touch the narrative that was in place in those games. And there's enough of these vaults that exist.
And enough ways to explain away why you didn't know about some of this stuff in the beginning. So, but I got to say, like, having played those games and really enjoyed it, I remember getting the first Fallout and just kind of how tongue-in-cheek the entire game kind of was, especially with the vault stuff. Like, it was very much like they transferred that so well into the show. I was so impressed by like how they kind of push that feel into the show, and we're able to kind of take that and then just some of the danger and just some of the other stuff and make it go from this, computer generated game to, kind of real life computer generated imagery, but it transferred over really well too. Like I really felt like this was the same world, like that had come from, this isometric camera that when I went back and played.
Yeah, man, the Nolans have got it going on, man. I mean, now obviously,
but he didn't write any of that. He just directed a couple of the episodes, right? I know he did.
He was basically the lead producer.
Oh, was he the lead producer? Okay.
Yeah, but maintain the commitment to shoot film.
Yep.
It's all shot 35, which I was super surprised by, given how much effects work is involved in this, that you would even bother shooting film. But I think that goes back to Mr. Nolan. Yeah. Or the Nolan, now it's the Nolan brothers. And while Chris didn't write any of this or produce, we're finding out now that the workflow for both Jonathan and Christopher is that they run all kinds of stuff by one another, even though they're not writing together anymore. We're pretty far removed now from the Batman trilogy and some of those earlier films that they co-wrote.
Yeah.
And it's not because there was any falling out. They've just evolved to the point where they kind of want to execute their own creative vision, but they still run this stuff by each other. So I don't have specifics, but there's stuff we're seeing in this first season of Fallout that are fingerprints of Mr. Christopher Nolan, not just Jonathan. It's excellence executed from start to finish.
And Jonathan's already got, several things under his belt without his brother anyways have done well. Like I was, really enjoyed the first season of Westworld.
Yes.
I thought it was done really well. Like it teased you just the right amount. Kind of felt like a more serious, more adult version of Lost, but felt things were a little more planned out than willy-nilly. So still haven't finished that. But go on.
And you were right. Jonathan directed 3 episodes, as well as being, I wouldn't call him a showrunner, but man, he's kind of close. I mean, they certainly, at least in the marketing, they certainly had him front this thing. You mentioned it is quippy and funny, but they've also sewn a bunch of mystery into this thing as well. And I was actually really happy with them though, because they didn't do the J.J. Abrams thing of posing a bunch of questions and then not answering any of it. They gave some questions onto as far as like certain events and when they happened and where they happened and how and why and who's involved. And they answered quite a bit of it by the end. Yeah. The season finale. And I was like, bravo. Okay. But there's still enough unknowns out there that they left loose ends going into season 2. And it sounds like we're getting season 2 as quote unquote as fast as we can. It was funny. I was watching and I was looking at the setting for a lot of the exteriors and I was like, this looks really familiar. And it doesn't look like CGI. Is this Namibia from Top Gear? And I pull up the filming locations and then watch some behind the scenes and it's like, yep, that's it. Those houses, those buildings are all just there and the Sahara's just taking them over and they took complete advantage of that. And it looks surreal. And there's very little set dressing that you had to do. A few medicine bottles here and there inside.
It's one of those things just use the real world around you and, add what you need to, but try to grab as much. I mean, kind of when we talked about the creator of why we discussed kind of the thought process he was going to do it all CGI, all the backdrops and stuff, and then ended up going to Thailand and shooting there and how much better it looks than what any type of CGI would look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and I'm not sure where the studio, because the rest of the exteriors are Utah, Las Vegas, and then there's a lot of stuff in New York and some New Jersey. All the vault stuff is just done on a soundstage, and you could tell that they got good life out of the sets that they built for the different vaults because of basically the similar appearance to a lot of them. I was like, you could see areas where they were saving money, even though it is a production value, and I think it is a relatively expensive show, but I mean, Amazon's got
tons of money,
the money to throw around. And then from a casting standpoint, I mean, the only guy that you're really paying for is Goggins,
who, by the way, absolutely kills it the entire time. Just amazing in this role.
Well, he's amazing.
Anyways,
if you've watched and I've watched quite a bit of Justified. So, and then what's the other one? He plays. Is it The Righteous Gemstones?
The Righteous, yeah.
He brings his A game and everything he's in. He's just he's such an offbeat actor. I'm glad he's kind of finally getting his due. Although, if you're a fan of Justified, you've known how good Walton Goggins was for.
Well, and I like how this kind of gives him the duality of his character of where he can play the before and the after, and so you can and not just in a quick flashback or one or two where you just have this easy. No, he actually has to create his character before he turns into a ghoul and play it for a while and in multiple episodes, and you can kind of see this how he kind of makes his turn and how he makes these changes, and obviously then he's got an antithesis of that, of be the ghoul, of be this uncaring person with no family, and just the two absolute opposites, but then somehow also bring them together so they feel like it's still somewhat the same person. You can understand why he's gone from A to B.
It reminded me so much, and this is not coincidence, but it reminded me so much of The Dark Knight with the dialogue, the line about being the hero long enough that you become the villain. And it's well, that's another embodiment of this. That whole philosophy.
I didn't see it at first, but kind of even foreshadow it when he's still doing his movies and they have to when he doesn't want to shoot the guy or whatever at the beginning, he's just this is you've gone past being the nice guy. Now audiences want to see this kind of a thing. And so it's fun, these little nuggets of going back or thinking about them having seen the entire show as opposed to just in the moment. In the moment, you're just it's just talking about his character. But then at the end, you can kind of go back and see these little nuggets that the story had placed of like, oh, hey, here's a little foreshadowing. Here's a little extra thing for you. And you're like, wow, like it's a smart show. Like they really did a great job of making sure it flowed, making sure things kind of tied off like you were talking about, but yet leaving enough stuff open. Like not just arbitrarily like, let's kind of kick the can down the road, but like, let's resolve this. But yet there's more stuff to do. So it feels like, okay, this works. This ends the season, but I'm ready to move on as well. So it's not just kind of like, oh, and the villain got away and we have to fight him again. You know, it's not this like something weird happened or, you know, I'm forgetting the exact phrasing that I need to say, but
they give you just enough to get you to want to continue to pursue the show.
Yeah.
Both with plot points, events, and then the character arcs are all really relatively good too. Including a character that I didn't particularly care a whole lot about and kind of even was annoyed by, which was Maximus early on. and he's had a really rather tremendous arc, as good as anybody else in the show. I'd say him and Lucy's brother is also another one that I
that's a nice arc.
Didn't embrace initially. You see the wheels start to turn and it's like, oh, this is cool. Because I assumed when, you know, when the narrative kind of exited the initial vault that we wouldn't really ever return there. And so it was a pleasant surprise, spoiler, that you do get some insight into what's still going on. For a first season, I think they fleshed the world out pretty well, but it does at times still kind of feel small. Like it was hard for me to tell like what kind of distances they're traversing because everything's like on foot. And so I assume it's not really as far as I was initially kind of thinking. And it's really just, I think, right in around Los Angeles. Like they're not getting that far.
Yeah. It's not like they're going from like Ohio to
No. And I thought that when I kind of stepped back, I was like, well, I think I've actually seen shows where they've gone heavy-handed with that, where they've like had the character on foot traveling like crazy distances and they're like, well, how did you get here? So they didn't do that, and they did return to other places. And so you know, again, maximizing location. I could tell that they were like, okay, this is a good location. Let's probably use it more than once.
Yeah.
If we're going to fly the crew out to Namibia,
then
let's not just shoot a few days.
Well, and it was really nice. I mean, you kind of see some of it of like getting out of the vault and then being in the, you know, in the deserts or whatever. But then when Lucy meets that water collector guy or whatever, who's basically trying to get with her, like, but then she goes on to Philly or whatever. Like she doesn't have to go much farther until basically like. I kind of laughed the entire time because he's out here collecting water or whatever, or has his water purifier thing. But then there's like trees like 100 yards down the road. You know, it's like, okay, all right.
And that's kind of the tongue-in-cheek element of the way these video games are set up.
It's just kind of like,
where you'll have like, that guy felt like an NPC. Like, I mean, he really did. Like he acted like like he had his narrative loop that he was like stuck in. In the context of the show, it's almost like a psychosis, right? Like he was probably mentally ill. Well, he was. Whereas in a game, you encounter those characters and they're just pre-programmed NPCs. This is what they do.
this is where I live. I can't go any farther.
No, or if you watch some great sketches by like Viva La Dirt League, where a guy's just always chopping wood, yet no wood
ever gets
forms. The show definitely is extremely witty and smart and knows exactly what boundaries it's operating in.
Yeah. This is definitely, for me, one of the top, definitely in the top 5, if not like the top 3 or 2 of video game adaptations that have gone well. Like there's not many out there that I can be like, you know what, this was really great. Like, but this is definitely up there for me of like really well done. I'm actually super interested in seeing season 2, wanting to see where they go with this. Was really happy with it. You know,
the tone of this show and the execution and some of the humor and it reminds me a lot of Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And my recommendation to somebody is, if you've seen Fallout and you've not seen D&D Honor Among Thieves, you need to do yourself a favor and watch it, because they're cut very much from the same cloth. And the inverse is true too. If you've seen Honor Among Thieves and you've not sat down and watched season 1 of Fallout, I I think you'll enjoy it.
I will say I have a friend who watched like the first episode and then turned it off and was like, nope, not for me. Just because it was like just a little out there, maybe not too bloody, but
it's pretty bloody.
Yeah, it's very bloody, and it pulls no punches with any of that stuff either. It's just kind of, and it's weird in a lot of ways, and it also doesn't pull punches and sometimes doesn't explain itself about its weirdness. It's just like, all right, take it. Here you go. You just have to kind of take it and let it fester, let it sit there.
One of the things I really love about it is, I didn't play the games, and this aspect I didn't understand until I kind of looked it up, that this world is a world in which the semiconductor was never invented. So everything's huge. And I love that about it. Like, I love that anything mechanized is just 10 times as bigger than it would need to be if you had a semiconductor. And I adore it. Everything. I realized all the cars in the beginning are all nuclear powered. And I love this future retro tech aesthetic. I just think it's fantastic.
And it's one of the great things that are in the games, or at least in Fallout 1 and 2, that really did a great job of transitioning. I think they definitely made better in the show. Now, again, Fallout 3, New Vegas, the other ones or whatever, I haven't played, so I don't know how much they took from those, but I can definitely tell, like, they definitely expanded upon. I mean, obviously, and you don't even go back in time, so you don't see the world kind of before it decides to blow up. But one of the things I really liked, because it's a post-apocalyptic, obviously, it didn't have some of the same tropes as most post-apocalyptic, shows did. So, I mean, granted, some of that is obviously pulled from the video games and not from
right. Yeah, it does a neat thing for me where, in most post-apocalyptic movies or TV programs, everywhere you go is at basically the same level of civilization. Rarely will there be a pocket that's like exponentially in better shape than another. And in this case, that's not the case at all, which is, to me, very believable and realistic. If there were to be a nuclear apocalypse like this, that different pockets of the country and different areas and different vaults, whatever,
some would do better than others.
Some would be much better than others. Yeah, that's how our world is.
Pockets
pockets that are really great and pockets that are horrible, and then stuff in between. So I liked that about the show. I kind of applaud that. Characters could walk just a few miles and be in a completely different state of affairs than, like you said, with the guy trying to find water, and then like a mile down the road's like,
it's lush.
Yeah, there's gangs and stuff, but there's some civilization. Yeah. So,
and it wasn't even like it wasn't even that bad. Like when she went into Philly the first time, it wasn't like it was like she got shot or killed. I mean, it was definitely felt rough, but it didn't feel like, like it felt like you could walk in and walk out probably.
Yeah, but she didn't really have as much stuff of value on her either. So like that seemed to be obviously a big thing. Yeah. Now there is a character, I won't name him because I don't want to spoil it for people, but there is a character that is given a cocktail, shall we say, by a nefarious character. And I don't think he's going to be a ghoul.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I think it's something different, and I don't know exactly what it is. I think in ways it'll be better than if they were to turn into a ghoul, but I think in other ways it's going to be like worse.
Okay. All right.
I think there's a multitude of directions that they can go with them, and I'm fascinated to find out. And I was just aghast that character let him do that. I was like, wait, what? This is not going to end well.
And some of it was, it took me a minute because I thought it was all in his mind, and then when he started walking around, I was like, wait, what? And like it took me for a second. So.
That's a really gross scene, by the way, as far as you're talking about gore and stuff. It's like, whoa. But yeah, I don't know that they're going to be a true ghoul.
No.
And I think it would be narratively uninteresting to just have them become a ghoul.
Well, and it was one of the storylines that kind of didn't really completely resolve itself. And and I felt like it was okay. Like it was a tertiary story at best, but it leaves room for it to grow in season 2 and kind of affect the story more. It's one of those things where they've definitely built good characters, given story arcs to the ones that needed it, had them grow so that they can move on, but then have enough tertiary characters out there who, are not just NPCs, but actually have a little bit of growth or a little bit of change, or have something happen to them, like this one person that has room in season 2 for them to have arcs, for them to grow. And it's just kind of, I think that, forethought of thinking, where is this going? Hopefully Nolan has, and the writers have thought it out, 2-3 seasons ahead. And so they're not just kind of like, much like Lost, where they're like, here's a bunch of stuff in season 1. We haven't even thought about season 2 yet. But I feel like, knowing Jonathan Nolan, when he was talking about with Westworld, like, definitely they're already thinking about answers to the questions in from season 2 that they're going to answer in season 3. So hopefully that's what Fallout is as well.
Yeah, I have no concerns with that at all. I've never seen anything in the track record. Yeah, the writing in this show is, as you would expect, excellent, because shows like this aren't good unless the writing's good.
So it looks fantastic. I'm glad. I did not know that they shot on 35, but I'm gonna just tell you, it looks fantastic. The composite work of bringing in the CGI really works well. I think the most, even the suits, the whatever those armor suits are, look really good in frame. They don't look out of place.
No, they don't. And I think those are practical for the most part.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe so.
That's why they look so good.
I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that most of the time that you see
armor.
And what are those called? Power armor?
Yeah, power suit, power armor.
Yeah, I'm thinking most of the time we see those that is a practical effect.
That would make sense.
What's kind of your initial impression of Ella Purnell as Lucy?
I thought she was fantastic. It was Laura and I didn't start this until probably a week or two after it had released. And this one, obviously they had released all the episodes together. We were doing our best to not spoil it, but that, people were either talking bad about her or were not. She was at the beginning, I was like, oh my goodness, this naivety is a little grating. But made sense for the character. I was waiting for it to kind of happen.
Yeah.
So I think she did a great job. I never felt like she was not being a great actor at all. Sometimes the character itself, I was not fond of. Come on, get it through your skull. You're a little too naive. But obviously she has a character arc, and that at the end of that arc, or at least of season 1, I kind of really enjoyed where she got to. Well,
and the character adapts really quickly too.
Mm-hmm. But she's already shown to be really smart in the beginning, so it doesn't feel. And she's definitely not like a Mary Sue where she just does everything super well. So she definitely has her flaws, which is nice.
Yeah, she does, and she's made mistakes and paid for them in full. I thought the cast, top to bottom, is really good. Even characters that I just couldn't stand, that especially within the original Vault. these guys running for head of the Vault, and they're just the level of naivete is just insane, right? And it's man, unfortunately, this level of being naive is not relegated to a TV show with people in a vault. There's people walking around that just
in positions of of power in the corporate world,
of influence.
Yeah, of influence.
Yeah. The show definitely is it's not preachy, but it definitely has something to say when it comes to how much you should inherently trust other people. So, especially people you don't know.
Yeah.
And this is totally off topic, but I got a huge kick out of the squires basically being glorified caddies.
Yes, with the huge golf club set or whatever in the back.
Yeah,
that was the best.
It's wow.
Well, and I love the fact that you have these power armor suits, but it's so easy to disable one.
Oh yeah,
well,
yeah. I almost don't want to spoil it, but it's they still got that vulnerable spot from back in 52.
Well, but not even that. I was even thinking of the earlier one.
Oh yeah.
Where now, granted, you probably have to know a little about the suits. Well, both cases you have to know a little bit about the suits. But my goodness, it cracks me up.
Yeah, the suits don't make a whole lot of sense to me in where it's just you operating.
Yeah,
I feel in a group of them with air cover.
Yeah.
Which is probably pretty good, but to just be roaming around in the wild in one almost seems to me more of a liability.
Not, yeah.
And the show pretty much
shows that. Yeah, the dog was the best. The dog was absolutely amazing. So that's that.
Yeah, the dog is tremendous.
And my goodness, some of the stuff
that dog's a Belgian,
yes.
isn't it? Yeah. Or as what is it Joe Rogan calls those dogs? Meat missiles.
Meat missiles.
Yeah.
I've never heard that
because that's
before.
the dog that like can climb like, I don't know, 20, they climb trees, they jump 20, 30 foot walls.
And there's a level to it as well, I feel like that certain characters reach with the dog. And that you're just kind of, when you see some of the backstory, some of the other stuff, you just kind of go, oh, come on, have it happen. And then finally, yeah. And it works out.
Now, did you notice, it was just, there's nice little touches in the show. I really like how the opening titles are different for each episode. Thought that was just a nice.
Yeah. It made them interesting to watch.
Just
like,
just subtle.
Not try to skip it.
And then they do that cool animatic to exit each episode of like where kind of geographically where you are, which is just a cool touch. Like they don't shortchange you in any area of this show, like from opening credit to closing scroll. Yeah. It's like got a craftsman's touch to it.
They, like kind of what you said, they saved money where they knew they could save the money without affecting the overall product, like reusing a set, dressing up, but making sense because, hey, all the vaults are going to be basically, the same or similar in nature.
The only thing I can't find is surprise, is a budget. But
it's about 150 million.
Is it?
It's a little over 150 million is what's reported.
For how many episodes? 8?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And that's with a mostly relatively cheap cast. So
I feel like shows like this and some of the other, I guess, Game of Thrones to a certain extent was true of this. Like the star power thing starting to become a real question as to is that a big deal anymore? I mean, I feel like there's a handful of people that still command an audience, but it seems to be dwindling every year. Now we're getting into an era like where we've talked about before, where you have film directors that have bigger built-in audiences than actors and actresses, which used to be unheard of, and that's starting to change, starting to be the case. So,
I mean, I'm here for it. I never was one to jump just because it was like, hey, it was the new Tom Cruise movie, or hey, it was the new whatever. But
I knew plenty of folks that did operate that way.
Now, I will say, I'm 100%. I'm like, oh, it's Nolan. I don't even need to know about it. I'm going to go see the next Nolan film. 100%. So I understand that concept, but
I mean, there were actors that I wouldn't have as much pause as going to see their stuff because their track record's usually pretty good and they don't make a bunch of stinkers.
Yeah.
Most of the guys I was big fans of are starting to kind of age out anyway. So
they're becoming producers or retiring or.
Yeah.
I know we were talking briefly about I mentioned that article I'd written that I've written. Wow. I'm very talented in many ways.
Can you name no. Please name the article
that I read that was talking about TV that was just like, we're in the age of mid TV where or like just mid products were afraid to take risks. And I think this is not the antithesis because I still do completely agree that we're kind of in that mid, but this is one of those, like kind of like an Andor or something where it took risks or made changes and kind of jumped to be great and not just, kind of was able to get out of that rut that a lot of TV shows are in.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's definitely like it could have scaled back a little bit on the gore, probably would have even reached more people, but I think it would have made it a lesser show. I think one of the things was because it didn't pull punches with the violence or the action or the gore or those kind of things, and kind of, a little shock value added into it, and just like, oh, okay, what the heck's going on here?
This almost feels like an inverse of GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Where you had like a good game, and this is bordering on a great show. And then with GoldenEye, you had a very good movie. Yeah. That became a great game.
Great game.
They just kind of flipped the script with this. But the Fallout games are really good. I mean, they're probably bordering on great as well.
Just as an FYI, unless you're playing multiplayer with a bunch of friends in the basement, GoldenEye was actually not a great game. But I digress.
I completely disagree. But I thought the single player was just fine. But yeah, we didn't. That's not why you played it.
So as a computer gamer, much better first-person shooters than GoldenEye at that time.
Yeah, you and your LAN parties.
Did have a few, buddy.
We had them in college too, man.
Yeah.
No, this is a good one. Do you have any closing?
No,
closing thoughts.
I'm excited for season 2. I'm hoping they had stuff thought out. And so now they're not scrambling for story ideas. They kind of already know where things are going, and it's just going to get better from here. I know Amazon's super excited about, what it got. I mean, it's currently sitting at 8.4 on IMDb right now. So, which is really nice. And I'm excited for the series. I'm excited for Nolan, see where he's going to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if they can get, if they could get 4 seasons out of this, that'd probably be a sweet spot. Not too many where it starts to lose its luster, but enough to kind of give us a full, nice, big narrative.
Yeah.
4 or 5 seasons tops, maybe. I like that about Nolan. I don't think he's interested in having this thing run for forever. So no, I'm with you. I'm super excited, and I'm more excited the fact that they have a sense of urgency now to continue to produce the show.
Yeah.
And not lose that momentum. And have years and years go by between seasons. Like, I just wish Stranger Things would have adopted this philosophy, especially the fact that you're shooting
young kids
with children that now you're having to pull all sorts of weird tricks to make them look a certain age. So yeah, hats off to the team on this one. This is, as far as new shows in 24, this is one of the top ones, if not probably my top one right now, as far as like a brand new.
Yeah.
Release.
But you haven't seen Shogun yet, have you?
No, not yet. But I do have Hulu now, so nice. Yeah, bundled up with the Disney Plus.
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet. Pretty. Yeah, it's got commercials in it, but whatever. It's cheap.
So does Prime now. My goodness.
Everything. It's ridiculous.
We cycled back.
I'm going through the stages of grief with them putting commercials back in. The whole reason we all left cable for all the streamers, and now we're right there
where we started,
which I actually predicted a couple of years ago, and people are like, yeah, right, whatever, you're just saying that. No, I pretty much predicted that we'd be right back to dealing with commercials at some point.
Yeah. Well,
there's just too much money left on the table. Yeah. It's like
so much money in commercials. Now, again, if they could do it, like, I like how Prime does it, where it's at the beginning, where you can, then you have the full amount. So it's not broken up. I hate it when it's in the middle, because then it kind of, you lose the momentum of the show or the movie or whatever.
Right.
Obviously
Disney puts them in the middle.
Yeah. And obviously that's frustrating. I mean, they probably get more eyes that way, because usually a lot of times you can just say, oh, hey, press play. Let's get to the, and then quickly go use the bathroom or go get your snacks or do whatever while the commercials are playing. And then we sit down, someone pauses it real quick or whatever. But in the middle, it just ruins it.
Yeah, it's a mess. All right, man. Well, we've been clocking this one in. So I think,
we have.
I think it's time for us to wrap up.
We will. So, we just want to say thank you to everybody for watching us or listening to us, or however you are getting your content of Cinema A to B. We really appreciate you all. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We're going to have another one coming up next Monday, and hope you enjoyed that one too. Thanks, everybody.